There also needs to be a human rights framework in place. In other words, people have to understand what exactly they are dealing with here. Is it just the Charter rights as set out, or are the normative rights about certain principles? Is it the rights set out by the UN called FRED, which is fairness, respect, equality, dignity, and maybe accountability, FREDA? Have a male and female version there, just thought I'd point that out. Or is it panel, for example, which is about participation, accountability, non-discrimination, empowerment, and the linkage between organizations. So there needs to be some sort of set of normative values and principles upon which the authorities will act. A recognition of how human rights apply internally to the organization itself, so that what we found was that some organizations might be looking outwards, but they weren't looking at their own issues about inequality in the workplace. Their HR policies didn't recognize the needs of particular groups who are underrepresented in the workforce, like, for example, again, Hume with the indigenous workforce and enabling them to get into work positions in that council. We also found that a framework for training, again, something that we heard, was absolutely important and awareness raising as well for staff, for the public, and for contractors. So this was about websites, it was about train the trainer models. It wasn't just one form of training. It wasn't, oh, we've put something on the website for information, that's it. It was about targeting your training to the group so that they had sufficient skills from the training that were relevant and appropriate to the work they did, either at an interactional level, at the policy level, at the legal level. There's not just one form of training, in other words. You have to operationalize several. Participatory frameworks for those who use the public authority services, and we've heard this again and again tonight, it's really important. You cannot make change unless there's an engine out there pushing for it. And if those people are sufficiently disempowered and lack the voice to be able to apply any leverage for change, if there is no channel and there is no avenue, then there will be very little response. So we need people to point themselves to the solutions that they see for their lives so that the councils themselves can respond to their claims about what they would like and to work with them over time. There also needs to be a system of complaints and advocacy so that in terms of ideas about how people establish and maintain their rights against some of those things that challenge them within the provision of local authority services, that they have some say. There has to be an equality of arms, in other words, an equality of arms between people who are disadvantaged and those who are in positions of power. Without that equality of arms, it is impossible to change anything. And in addition, finally, there do need to be systems for monitoring and evaluating the impact of human rights in order that you can actually measure your change, see where you're going. And I think, broadly speaking, that's where our project was. We are, in some senses, doing what is always historically done, and that is establishing a framework from the top down. It is the experts who are establishing the framework at this point in time. I think that one of the things that we probably need to do in the future is to actually empower communities themselves to set the framework for monitoring and evaluation, or at the very least to be involved in it. And it's not something that we've seen so far, but it is nevertheless a principle that I think we should adopt for the future. Now, having just given you a snapshot of some of the findings, we jumped. Having given you a snapshot of some of the findings, I can now relax a little bit and tell you something about the tool we developed in order to fix in with some of those findings, which would apply to all local authorities. So we have two tables in the document that we've produced. One is an implementation tool, and the other is an assessment table which measures progress. I've got just the assessment table, which, Liz, you can hand around to people. We've also developed a handbook and a draft toolbox which gathers together the available resources which may assist in implementing a human rights approach. What we've done with the milestones is just break them down into 3 generally accepted, straightforward, common sense implementation stages. Nothing complex in that. Plan, act, reflect. This also ties in with continuous quality improvement frameworks. And we've split those milestones into areas which reflect the findings that I've referred to already. So, there are 9 milestones. They relate to planning, 2 milestones, to the acting level, a few more milestones, and finally to the monitoring and the evaluation. I can't go through all of these in great depth, but I will say that the final document which has the tools available will be on the VLGA website in the not too distant future. At the moment, those tools are actually out for consultation with the local governments that participated with us, collaborated with us.